of what are the stereotypes in society, then what are the opportunities in society, that's when we have a problem on hand. If most of the women are meeting up in gangs and having a conversation about whether or not they'll change their name after their marriage, they're obviously out of focus. They should be thinking, am I going to make my first million in the next 1 year or the next 5 years?
Hola geeks, ¿cómo están? Bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio de GGPodcast, un proyecto de GeekGirlsMX. GeekGirlsMX es una comunidad creada por mujeres que busca hacer de su pasión un proyecto de vida. Yo soy Yani, hoy está Verónica aquí acompañándome en esta charla y de invitada especial tenemos a Shaili Chopra, una mujer que tiene una trayectoria increíble, es una mujer activa en este movimiento del feminismo. Y bueno, vamos a platicar con ella de su carrera y de todo lo que ha estado haciendo para apoyar y soportar el género. Pero antes de empezar, como siempre, queremos agradecerles a todos ustedes por estar en un episodio más. Gracias por todo lo que hacen, por apoyar este proyecto. Recuerden que nos pueden seguir en todas partes como GeekGirlsMX y si no se han suscrito a nuestros canales, este es el momento para hacerlo. Muchas gracias. También muchas gracias a nuestro patrocinador RSS, el lugar en donde pueden hospedar su podcast. Y bueno, pues ahora sí estamos listas para comenzar con nuestra charla. Una pequeña cosita, esta es una charla que va a ser en inglés, so let's go to switch to English. Shaili, welcome.
So you're muted, Shaili.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here with you.
Thank you, Shaili. So basically, I'm going to do the presentation, Geek Girls, and Shaili Chopra basically is building groundbreaking products for women with Gayatri.com, which is a women's health platform, and Shethepeople, which is Asia's largest community of women and girls. It's what she calls Sisterhood Economy. So Shaili, we finally got to talk to you. Welcome to this episode.
Thanks so much. It's wonderful to be there. And, I watch so much of Spanish and Mexican serials that I almost know how to understand Spanish. But I think by the time we do our next podcast, I will learn how to speak as well. So good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. We can practice some words if you want.
Yes. Why not?
Okay, so let's start from the beginning, Yani, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We like to start with a little bit background about you and your career. Can you tell us where did you study and what are you doing right now?
Great. So I'm I've had 3 different careers and I'm on my 3rd right now. I started out as somebody who wanted to be a journalist. Then I picked up a job in broadcast journalism, and I spent close to 15 years being on Indian television, talking about business, the world of stock markets and Wall Street. It was something that really fascinated me and continues to fascinate me significantly. That career was extremely rewarding because not only was I able to become a household name in India, but more importantly, I'm passionate about breaking news stories, and it gave me the opportunity to meet global and Indian leaders, be present at places, to report, very exhilarating. So that was part 1 of my career. And having grown up as a military officer's daughter, for me, this entire space of constant change, moving from one city to the other, exploring new spaces is very inherent in what I do. So it's been very exciting to not have to be stuck in one place and move in my life. And I actually look at my careers a bit like that, because I feel the importance of a person living their life to the fullest and trying to do more than just one thing that they thought they were set out to do. So while being a journalist, I realized that I was reporting a great deal, but mostly the world was made up of men. And I asked myself, where are the women? And that's what really kind of left me a bit shocked and unsure of how this world could be progressing in the future if it didn't have half its population in the spotlight or working. And that's how She the People was born. She the People is one of the largest communities of women in the world, and essentially creates an environment for women to talk freely, understand each other, and leverage the network of sisterhood and see how they can find their voice in the world. And so, yeah, so now my time is spent in building products for women. Gayatri.com is it's an outcome of some of those conversations with women who said we don't have a way by which somebody can solve our requirements for menstruation to menopause and hormonal health, and it would be great to have a platform that's backed by health experts that helps me navigate that journey. And that's exactly what Gayatri is trying to do. So yeah, I am every few years trying to see how we can become more and more relevant to women.
I'm kind of curious when you mentioned that when you were a journalist and you just came across a lot of men. So what were women doing? I mean, I'm pretty sure you did come across some women, but what were they doing back then? That was
So I
your
think
interest.
a lot of women, so let's give some context. In India, we have less than 25% of the women working in the workforce. That's like three-fourths of our population, of female population, actually doesn't go to work, right? That is a huge number, but more than that, it's a big miss for an economy. And when I look at how women are perceived to be successful, it's a bit like if you can take a man's place, that's when you're successful. You're not
Mm,
successful when you make your own place, when you build your own table or find your own seat, or you decide that I'm not going to break the glass ceiling, I'm going to decide where my ceiling starts. So I
mhm,
think it's the way women have never just given themselves a chance to define who they are, what they want to be. That was part of the problem. But just look
mhm,
at a country like ours, right? I mean, we're the most populous country in the world, 1.4 billion people, 750 million women. At
mm,
750 million women, we're twice the size of United States, three times the size of Brazil, and five times the size of Japan. I'm still talking about Indian women.
mm,
The Indian female population is one-tenth of the world's population. And I'm asking myself that if we are such a big force, why don't we feel it?
uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
Why don't we feel it? Why don't we do something about it? Why don't we literally get together and ask ourselves, where are these women? What are they doing? What can they do?
Mhm,
How can they find themselves? So I think I was kind of and I still am, as perhaps my tone kind of reflects. I'm deeply upset about the way we box women in who they should be, what they should do, and how much they should aspire to be. And so when it hit me as a journalist, this was back in 2013, 14. I kept thinking that part of the reason I wanted to do this because I was part of the system that should be blamed for not putting out enough stories.
of
In
course.
a world where media defines what is read and said and viewed, how come we are not able to fix it by just getting better stories on the media?
Exactly.
Telling what the girl next door is able to do, or what women are doing in technology or whatever. So I think that was really one of the biggest goals for me to change that.
That's amazing. That's looking quite clearly into the problem, right? And like if they're not here, if they're not talking here, if they're not getting these amazing places and jobs, where are they? What are they doing? Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
understand that.
And what do you think is happening like that? I mean, uh, do you think the women don't find the way to be part of the economy, or what is the principal problem to this topic?
So what are the women in India currently doing, right? Majority of them are not working. They're running household, raising children, sometimes raising their husbands, figuring out what to do in terms of being able to have a say in the household, to be able to say no to their husbands, to be able to have just a voice and identity. That's why in many parts of the world, including in India, if you end up being lucky because you have a supportive partner, it's like a blessing, right? I mean, what should be normal is considered a blessing. So for women, most of the reasons why they want to stay back and not do this is because they just don't feel like being in a conflict with family, in conflict with society, right? India has the great, fortune of being a country. I mean, well before United States, we consider that a benchmark of gender equality. Um, we have more women in politics than most parts of the world. Most parts of the world. Then we have had two female presidents long before United States had chosen its first. So I think we've really moved the needle on many of these counts
Mhm.
and have shown that on a headline basis, we are moving to more female presence. But when you go across and ask a woman in, let's say, in my neighborhood, right? And I'm in a neighborhood like you guys are, which is somewhat progressive, professionals, well educated. You'll find so many women saying that, you know what, I just don't feel like taking up a fight. I know I lose my identity in this. I don't want to have a conversation. I'm just better off living off my husband's money. My parents never trained me to explore, job security. I think it's just such a mindset shift that's required in this country because we
Mhm.
are so busy living with um, labels. I mean, if the conversation is more of what are the stereotypes in society, then what are the opportunities in society, that's when we have a problem on hand. If most of the women are meeting up in gangs and having a conversation about whether or not they'll change their name after their marriage, they're obviously out of focus. They should be thinking, am I going to make my first million in the next 1 year or the next 5 years, right? But they're not thinking that,
Yeah.
and that is to me the biggest problem, right?
Mhm.
We are so happy as I see so many women just so happy that they're married rich. I think that needs to change. Now, all of this is not the women's fault. It's how she's
Mhm.
raised. I keep saying this to people. We keep debating that, women need to change, society needs to change, and I'm telling them, who needs to change? Women need to rethink how they raise the other half of the population. We spend too little time reminding women that they are the ones who are raising the boys, who are feeding all of this in the minds of girls, right?
Yeah.
So
At the
we're
end,
not,
we are the example for the ones that are coming after us, right? And if we
yes,
just keep not talking about this, it's just gonna, it's still gonna be that seed that will grow onto them when they become adults and decide to marry somebody that would
exactly.
basically give them the solution to their lives. And I think it's more to that. It's more about knowing that we are capable of giving us the lifestyle any other husband could. I mean, it would be amazing if it was just us. And also if we had like the same opportunities that any man would have, even though we might end up having a child in the future, because we have heard those kind of like details, like let's say in Mexico, right? So
Mhm.
finally, maybe some women are already thinking of not having a partner or not even getting married. I mean, they're not based on that, but at the same time, we know that companies kind of get nervous when they want to give a higher position to a woman, because what if she gets pregnant? What if she doesn't come back? What if,
Yeah,
like we're gonna invest in her so much, and then at the end she might just decide to go for motherhood, right? And I think that should
exactly.
be the issue, right? You were gonna say.
People have the confidence, and this is a reflection of how skewed our society is.
Yeah.
I have seen enough men around me who have said this publicly at the workplaces a few years ago that, they'll tell a girl who's just gotten married, now just don't go and get pregnant. And I'm thinking, like, who are you to decide what she wants to do with herself, right?
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
the patriarchal structures are so deep rooted, so frustrating that many times women who try to break through to them as well are either stuck with losing battles or are kind of getting around halfway. And I really admire their gumption and guts to make that effort. But we know that sometimes they just have to fall back because
Mm.
circumstantially the environment is poor, right? And not just that, I think in terms of the organizational growth that women potentially seek in workplaces. One of the things that seems to be happening, and I don't know if this is true for many parts of, let's say, where you are, is that men are just becoming really upset that there is a lot of focus on women's equality as a subject. And to me, that is horrifying because, we barely had this conversation for 2 years with some intellect. All these years, we've just been putting posters. So all that we do in terms of investment is just the printing cost of it and just keep saying, oh, you know what, we should have gender equality. But that doesn't really start and end there, right? As we all know. I mean, it's a shift in how we work. It's a shift in hiring. It's a shift in how much we promote women, how many people lead in an organization, how many sit on the boards. So we're far from it. And I do sound sometimes like somebody who doesn't have that much optimism. I do have a great deal of optimism because that's why we've reached here in a decade. But I just feel that optimism is not forgetting how bad the situation is, right?
Mhm.
Optimism is how much we can do about it. And the
Yeah.
more I think about it, three of us can do so much about it. 30 of us can do more. 300,000 of us can do even more. That's what I call sisterhood. I mean, I was
Mhm.
just having this really animated conversation as I went down on the road to raise money for Gayatri.com. You ask a venture capitalist that put money on women's health, and he's like, I don't understand it. So I said, is that the solution to not investing? Go and start learning about it, right?
Of course.
I mean, you're talking about a 750 million female opportunity sitting here, every one of which, plus some others, menstruate. So which world are you sleeping in, right? So I
Yeah.
just think that we've just got to get them to change.
Yeah. Yeah. You were going to say something, Yanni. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, no. I just want to ask, what is the information that all the women had can find in your project? I mean, how do you encourage them to get more information, or I don't know, what is the activities that you do with your project?
Great. So both on Shethepeople and Gayatri, one of the central pieces is awareness. If women need to be able to change or think, rewire, they need to know what is the other thought. And for us, it is that focus that let's tinker with what is our status quo, create interesting stories, content, workshops, networking opportunities, events, and see where can women find themselves either learning something about financial independence, learning about women's health, learning about fitness, any of this, and at the same time meet other people who can inspire them to stay on that course. So that's part one. The Women's Health Platform, for example, looks at menstruation to menopause because we feel that women really do need guidance and handholding throughout this journey. It's not good enough to have just a doctor, but somebody who literally will keep reminding you what you need to do, whether it's your lab test, whether it's your need for, whether you're crossing 20 and the kind of lab test that you need, or whether you're crossing 30 and the kind of, advice you need, whether you need a fitness expert or you need a
Mhm.
pigmentation expert. So I think for many ways, when people come to the female first platforms that we have made, it's, and this is universal. I mean, in many ways, women's issues are same everywhere. I mean, I have
Exactly.
30% of my audience coming in from the United States because we're an English platform, among other languages in India. Um, and tells me people resonate when we talk about the queen bee syndrome, or the syndrome, the superwoman syndrome, or when we talk about why women are judged by how they dress,
Mm.
or how women are being mansplained. So I think the world's overall challenges are similar, but
Yes.
there's a great opportunity for women to not just have another sister hear her, but more importantly, tell her how to navigate out of it.
Yes. It's funny, but we had a recent podcast where we were talking about why should women work on their days, right? Like if we're feeling like very bad, like I don't know, our stomach is hurting, and like recently we saw a comedian that she said like, oh, recently doctors said that having your period is kind of like having a heart attack, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, how are you today? And she's like, oh yeah, it's
Third
having a
day
heart
of the
attack,
heart
right?
attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this girl was telling us that a movement started here to take away the taxes from all these products related to periods, right? So men were not complaining when we were paying the taxes. But as soon as we asked for them to take them away, they started complaining like, oh my God, what else are you going to want to, what else do you want to have for free? And I'm like, man, you weren't complaining when this was being paid. Like, why are you complaining when it's not going to be paid? And then chances are that your woman is not even working. So this is a good thing for your own pocket. And they're not even thinking about that because they're probably the ones who are paying those taxes. So it's just, trying to go against women instead of understand that these are things that are natural from our own body and that you shouldn't be making profit from it because it's so natural. They don't even have to invest. So women get paid less. We need to invest more in our health. And there's nothing supporting, right? Like this just living system of a woman. So I
Yeah, I mean,
totally,
you paid for razors, right? I mean, I shave my arms and I use a razor. It's it's like one third of a dollar for a male razor, and it's about $7 for a female razor. I mean, just somebody explain to me what exactly is this difference in the two damn razors, you
I
know?
know they
So
cut exactly
I
the
think,
same.
yeah, it's just the same. I mean, we need something to do the job. And this is my discomfort with this entire movement around women's equality, that we reduce it to to our needs, which are hygiene needs.
Uh-huh.
I mean, as if like we should be apologetic for seeking some basics at really reasonable price so most women can have it. I mean, I live in a country like India where women are still not using sanitary pads. Forget about thinking about how menstrual cup works or a tampon as an option. And we continue to live with cultural barriers where women who are menstruating are asked to sit in another room for the next 5 days, or are pushed to another part of the house, which is like outside the main building. These are very strong cultural barriers in my country. And yet the conversation in the cities is pretending to be so over woke that we think that even having a conversation about price of sanitary napkins is now passé. So my worry is about the kind of immune behavior we're displaying when it comes to women's issues and not taking them head on. There is no other way in the world that these issues can be solved if we don't constantly talk about them, constantly talk about them. Sorry. And so I don't think it's really, and I remind men, this isn't about them. They are so
Mhm.
obsessed with getting things like,
Mhm.
oh, this is also about us. No, it's not about you. It's about women. They need to have their spaces because the status quo of a space in this world has been for men.
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
exactly. Yeah, well, there is another important thing that I think you are working with, that is financial independence for women. How do you, what kind of information that you provide to the women who are in contact with your projects?
Which particular project? The health
Uh,
one?
for for example, I saw your Instagram, the Shethepeople
Yeah.
TV, and you have
Yeah.
many posts that have some information about financial economy,
Yes. Yes.
focus for women.
Yes.
So yeah, this is a point that is looks very interesting.
Yes, so I think we have to start looking at women based on their needs. What we've been talking about. So women have the same needs as anybody else. We need to make money. We need to have careers. We need to have access to good health, clean water, a roof above our head. I think we always think that these are not women's needs. And so the aim of the platform is to talk about and engage on issues that must be central to women to become independent. Money is one of them. And as we look at money, what are the primary pieces around money? One is the fact that women are generally discomforted by the talk around money. I think that needs to change, right? Second is that we all need to recognize that when you earn money, it gives you the power to say no. It
Mhm.
gives you the power to stand up for yourself and spend the way you like. I can't even imagine what it feels like to seek a person's permission to spend money on your own self, right? I have people who work with me, and sometimes they tell me, give me only half the salary. So I said, why do you want that? She says, because the other half I'll keep with you, and I will not tell my family. I mean, I'll take it from you and then spend it on myself. Because somebody at home is waiting to know where the salary check is and why it's not come in full or half, things like that. So big learning opportunities about how to become financially independent, listening to stories of other women who've gone through this, right? We've done about a million stories of women. Okay, in these million stories of women, which you also see on our Instagram, you find that there'll be a story of a woman who'll talk about how she was badly treated by her mother. And I realized that she's just one symptom of a story. There are thousands, millions of women who have the same story, but it's a hard relate to somebody else. So how they navigated that journey out, right? My own journey as somebody who was a very young achiever in the eyes of the world as a media journalist. And I remember one of the CEOs of a channel where I work came out and said, don't think you'll ever have my CEO's position. And I'm thinking this guy should be encouraging me to walk that path to the cabin, but he's not. And then I just turned around and told him that I don't want your position. I will build my own company. You're just a person doing a job. But I had the guts. How many of us don't have the guts, right? I always say this, that there is strength in speaking, but there's a lot of fierceness in silence as well. And as sisters of that sisterhood, it's for us to be able to figure out whose silence should be literally, supported by others, and who's speaking up will help the larger cause. This is just to make sure that nobody gets left behind in this. So yes, financial independence is a very big part of our piece. We run something called the She Academy, where women also learn digital skills. They learn how to start their own pages. They can put their products and start selling. We look at speaking to women in urban and semi-urban India, and discuss how they're building their companies, why they're building their companies. The large number of single women who are on our platform as well. India has 72 million single women. That's like twice the size of a couple of European countries, if you ask me. Right. So what are these women doing, and why they need to be looked at as someone who's economic potential? So for me, my book Sisterhood Economy has really been a summation of what my experiences have been at a personal level, as well as what I've seen. And it's really interesting to see how many women are out of this economic cycle because of non-economic factors. They're not there because they can't lift bricks. There are enough women in our country who lift bricks, and they lift them better than men. Okay. There are enough people in our country, enough women in our country who are politicians. Can they win? Absolutely. We are a democracy. They win elections. So I think the patriarchal structure is so deep rooted that we forget that, we are constantly finding somebody to blame. We'll blame the mother-in-law. We'll blame the caste system. Caste system is India's biggest setback, where they divide people based on what caste or the nature of work they do. So the priests are on top, and the people who, let's say, clean homes are at the bottom. We have all kinds of layers. And this is the conversation that needed to happen, to break down, to say that economic growth in a country like India will only happen if the other half of your population is also working. And these factors matter.
Yeah. So you were saying 7 million
72 million single women.
17?
72.
72. Okay. That aren't married, but who is taking care of these women if they're not even working? Their family?
So there are a bunch of situations here, right? They are either not married by choice, or not married, are not in marriages due to circumstances, right? So they'll be divorced or separated or some of that. So it's a mix of women. Who's taking care of them? I think a large number of them are among the women who are in the workforce. Are they in the organized workforce? The answer to that is no. They're working in the unorganized workforce. They get paid in cash. They're not running their bank accounts. They are, sort of in between. I mean, again, I'm just thinking people who live in condos get a lot of people who come to clean. They come as masseurs. They come as gardeners. All of these people have a large number of women in India. And are they in the organized workforce? The answer to that is no. But could they be? Yes, because if we actually show these people the value in organizing themselves and go beyond, let's say, a hundred, 150, whatever, $1,000 or over a couple of months sort of salary to a much more, the level of life will really change for them.
Of course.
So no one's taking care of them simply because, one, we don't have social security in this country. Second, most of these people in the unorganized sector don't even invest in insurance options. Third is that with so many people on our land, people actually the value and worth of life is quite it's ephemeral, right? You're there, you're not there. It's a bit tough. So a lot of the women who are working and not working, they actually do have some common problems. One of them is that, what, who cares about me anyway? The self-doubts, it's like a crown on their head, right? And I think that this is universal. There is a misconception that countries in the third world or emerging world like ours seem to have their problems. I just seem to hear the same thing from all American CEOs who are female. And I'm thinking that, you know what? At any time America sits there and gives me a lecture about how things are, please have somebody look back into your own backyard. Australia has some of the worst practices as far as women are concerned. Japan is so way behind that it's almost an embarrassment about how they treat women. And not just women, they are ages. If a woman crosses a certain age, like, she's done, she's expired. I mean, this is the nature of a world in 2023.
Yeah.
It feels like we're fighting the same battle centuries ago, except that there's more advertising about gender equality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Pretty heavy.
yeah.
I know. See, my worry is that I sometimes when we are having these conversations, our audiences would expect us to be happier. And I want to sometimes remind them that the realities are the way they are, because I'm glad I'm not here with pink balloons and I'm spelling it out in black and white, because all of your audience that's listening to this, they literally need to come back and say, we back each other.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think there is a natural way to grow into these new ideas. And like you mentioned before, I mean, mindset, it's pretty much the start of everything.
Yes.
And I know that we're not going to pick up, guns and rifles and just go and make men change their ways of thinking. There's a most intelligent way to do this, right? But the first thing I see is that women need to be aware that they are worth everything. They're worth the world, and they can decide to do whatever it is that they want with their life, right? The other thing is that sometimes we're talking about a lot about women empowerment, and most of the time when you start playing this game to make men kind of like you, it's more like you're empowering men. Like, I'm gonna give like such a very, very simple example. So normally when a couple, let's say the man is unfaithful, women tend to hate the other woman, right? The one he was unfaithful with. So here are two things. One, the woman that had been deceived is not seeing that the first one that actually didn't go through the promise was the man. And the other thing is the woman that this man deceived, this other one, she just empowered him to make him feel that he can have anyone who he wants whenever he wants it, right? And I'm just like, open your eyes and don't do that, because you have a value. You deserve to have like a good relationship with somebody that doesn't have any other things to do with any other woman, right? Or that, I mean, I understand that some relationships might finish, so just let this person go through their cycle, finish everything, and then start something good and new with you. I mean, that's possible. The thing is that we give men shortcuts. We make it easy for them, and then we end up like overriding the things that we actually deserve in order to give them like that permission of just grabbing whatever it is that they want. And that's part of, I believe that is kind of like, this is like the most simple way of seeing it, when women don't understand what their value is and what they actually deserve in life. What do you think, Yanni, about this?
Well, this is just an example, but I think there are a lot of more in different contexts. But I think right now women are more together than in other times. I mean, this kind of the things that
Spaces.
we are doing, like Big Girls or Shethepeople, or are organizations that are encourage women to be together, and I think this is one of the best way to, because now we know we need to change the mindset, what we think about us. So this is one way to we can
Create awareness, basically.
exactly, yeah, being together and being stronger together.
Yeah, and talking about all these examples. I have like another example, and I would like to know, Shaili, your perception about this. So then we have women that actually make it to the workforce, and
Yeah.
then they start acting as if they were men to get
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
position they want, right? And that's where I say, like, oh no, we lost another chance to work, using woman traits, the way that we actually function inside a company. And then it's a big loss for the company, because they're not going to understand what women needs are really, what are they about. So they're not going to make changes, because at the end, it's the woman sacrificing having a child, or maybe even getting married, or maybe getting those vacations, because they feel like just they have to be there. And they end up, if they have kids, maybe they don't take care of them as much as they would like to, stuff like that. And I don't know, what's your opinion about this, men transforming into this kind of
Yeah. So, I'm
mindset?
100% with you. I call this women wanting to be Rambo at work. They just arrive in the office and then they want to be like the guy who's driving it. What is it? There's a concept called like men, right? So everywhere we see she's a girl, she's a woman who's like a man, right? For everything, she's doing this like a man, just like we've had like you cry like a girl, but you lead like a man, right? I think that's really it's just been around. But I think there's a special place in hell for people who continue to do this because a lot goes into investing in leadership, in change, where women can actually finally have a spotlight and they can do much more for the others, right?
Yes.
And that's why I think there are a large number of good examples. Whether one looks at what happened to Jacinda Ardern, whether we look at what happened with Sheryl Sandberg, whether we look at Marissa Myers, was it, who was judged for coming in office with a pair of twins. I think women can project that they are able to lead a man's world with female leadership qualities without necessarily compromising on on the ability to lead and drive businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where I 100% agree with you is that it's an opportunity lost if the person doesn't do that, simply because we do want people to know that the current form of leadership, status quo men, is actually flawed. And therefore, when a leader comes around, she's not really coming with soft skills as they like it to believe because she's empathetic. Empathy should have been part of the original set of behaviors of a leader. Somehow they
Yeah.
missed it, which is absolutely daft in the first place. And we're trying to fix it. So I think that we have had those challenges in around us. But I guess for us, the show must go on. We just like ignore them and just move on. I mean, there are no other choices because women ought to realize that there will be women who won't stand for basic principles of the sisterhood, right? And here, when nobody's asking women to create favors, they just need to go find the women. I always say this, that if you have a position that's open and you're a female CEO who's looking to fill a certain position, at least make the hiring process equal. Get 10 men, 10 women, see what works. Nobody wants people to do a favor to somebody else. Not even a woman who's seeking a job wants a job because she's a woman. I think
Yeah.
that's another side of it too.
Yeah.
think about. But we've not quite reached there. So I'll make an admission. I often get asked, why do women need a separate channel? Why do women need a separate women's health platform? And I'm constantly answering this, saying that I don't understand that until the world gets so equal that women don't feel threatened by platforms that are regular, and they find enough for themselves, they find themselves represented, talked about, we will need platforms for women all the time. We are unnecessarily pivoting onto a kind of conversation that there are enough women leaders, there are enough neutral spaces that look after women, and so on and so forth, which is problematic. And it'll be much harder for our people, our sort of our generation, which is very keen to stay progressive, that
Mm,
sometimes they will lose sight of the fact that in their desire to be so progressive, they forgot the women's movement in such a poor way, because we really didn't notch up to the equality that they think there is, you know?
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we have our own skills. We have our own way to be leader, to be part of a team, to be part of a process. And I think the point is to find and connect with us, to find this way to do the things, and not try to be like men or like other persons. I think this is where we can find the power, the real power, to be connected
Yes.
Connect
with us, with ourselves.
yes. But you know, so there's something that you said that I just picked on, which is that today we live in a world where women are finally realizing that they're not alone, which is a
Mm,
very big
Yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
And they're
yes.
realizing this not just by meeting somebody physically. I mean, we haven't met, but I have a connection with Vero, right? Because of
Mm.
our many conversations. I mean, we've met, but very briefly. And then I mean, essentially, we haven't met in a long time, but there's a
Mm,
connection. And I think that's what the power of digital has done. I think it's
mm.
really helped women realize that they're not alone in this. And sometimes
Yes.
just to know that they are able to go through even an Instagram timeline, sometimes to feel so encouraged, or it shifts something in them. It pivots a moment. It's
Mhm.
powerful.
At least it sparkles an idea that maybe this is not the only reality I should be living, right? And something should be changing. Also, I think that I sometimes question myself, like if we can actually make those changes in these companies that were made for men. I mean, I totally get the history. I understand that we used to stay at home and we used to take care of our children, and it was men working out there, right? So the whole industry moved according to their needs and understanding that they were the only ones bringing like all the support and food and everything to their family. So of course they needed to win enough money, right? But I think the idea may come, I mean, this is just me kind of loud thinking. um Perhaps they, maybe when the first woman started working, men said, okay, let's pay them something like enough good, because probably their husband is going to pitch in the rest, right? So maybe they were thinking that. I don't know. The thing is, I kind of find it very difficult to change that. And I believe that what's going to happen or what's coming is women creating women companies that are hiring women and just making things different. Because I don't, even though if they talk about gender equality and things like this, I mean, at the end, is in a company, I mean, you end up seeing men trying to overtalk, women speaking louder or mansplaining. They don't yet get that idea, or I don't know if it's too hard for them to embrace. Is it something because of their pride, or
I
they
think
just don't
it's
get it?
they just start to get afraid to lose power because the industry, the system was created by men, so it
Fear.
follow it follow all the men's what men's necessity to to be functional in this system. But
Yeah.
the world is changing, and women don't want to be just like the who. make the food or take care of the children. Women want to be other things. That means that men have to left less power to leave women to make other things. I don't know. I think it's something about her.
Yeah, but I have a slightly different perspective on this, and I just think that we as women sometimes become really guilty that we are setting up organizations with only women. Um, I don't feel that, I've done this for the last 7 years. I feel extremely proud that we are building organizations which are not just for women, but are built by women. And the reason I say that is that uh, prima facie, it may seem like it's exclusionary, but you know what? Exclusion has been the process of the world. And I couldn't be bothered if my organization is considered exclusionary because let's say I don't proactively look for men, right? I do have men in my organization and they're really happy. And every time I meet them, they're like, we're just changing the way we think so badly that we don't know if we'll be able to adjust even to women now because we are so feminist in it. So, but that's not what I'm just coming in from the point that this is also, according to me, a figment of imagination created by the patriarchy around us. So they're constantly asking us, oh, so we left women out of the workforce. So what are you doing? Now you're taking women and leaving men out of the workforce, right? I'm just trying to kind of remind us that
Yeah.
the patriarchal system loves to play games.
Yeah.
And that's all they've done all their lives. So we can easily fall into that. I mean,
Yeah,
I
they
fall into
guilt trip.
this trap all the time, whether it's my job, whether it's something else. Oh, you are now a founder, you can't be so loud. And I'm gonna be really loud. I don't care what somebody else thinks. Because there is this constant pressure to be like something or do it like another way. I think we're just tired of people's ways. Just so
Yeah.
tired of
Yeah, and it's easier to work with women. Like women normally don't seek for whose fault if something went bad. They're just like, okay, what's going to be the solution? And I feel like
Yes.
sometimes men are like, whose fault was it? Like, yeah, just trying to point. I'm not saying all of them, but
Yeah.
I have come across
Exactly.
people like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And so this is a good thing, right? You said what is the hashtag, right? Not all men, right? I keep
Yeah.
saying the same thing. It's not all women because so many men are like, oh, a woman is another woman's worst enemy. I'm like, of course, but not all women. So again, the same thing. Somebody says something and there's a counter argument sitting in society waiting for it to sort of come together. I find my own relatives sometimes saying, you're just too strong-headed for me. I think strong-headed is the more polite way of saying that you're so independent.
Stubborn or something like
Yeah,
that.
stubborn. So I just think that I guess we've got to I just wish that women reach a point in terms of their financial independence and
Yeah.
safety where they don't have to worry about those two factors about how they're going to talk.
Yes. Or they don't depend from, making their decisions to see if their partner agrees with them. Like, I don't see them asking permission. Like, hey, I'm going to go head out with the friends and, whatever. They don't normally,
Yeah.
I need my time for myself. It's been too much work and family and kids and the women, like all with their hair all everywhere because they did the lunch and the kids and whatever. And they don't deserve like that moment with the girlfriends and just forget about the kids and family. It's just men. Yeah. There's a lot of work to do still. Do you have another?
Exactly.
Yeah, and well, we are talking about that we need to. Well, I would like to know what kind of skills do we need to be able to achieve these goals. I mean, we need to change our mindset. We need to know about financial economy. We know to know about what else. What else we need to do to know to learn to change our kind of life.
Yeah. What would be your suggestions,
So I
Shaili?
think first, I think we just need to believe in ourselves. I just think like there are days when, even I wake up and say, oh my God, you know what? I'm just not getting this. It's not happening. I think we just have to believe in ourselves. There's just no other way. I mean, every time I read somebody's post who says that if you're going through this, trust me, I've been through it. And I'm like, oh God, at least I'm not alone. So I think one is to just have belief in your own self, right? And two, I think we all have really mammoth problems. They just shift in terms of scale depending on which life stage you are in. So I would only suggest that we put ourselves in positions of self power, where we are able to decide for ourselves. Having the choice to make a choice is the biggest sense of empowerment. And that'll come from a bunch of basics. One of them is having safety. Second one is having a bank account with some money in it. Third, according to me, is having a career. Um, I am that kind of feminist who respects people who work at home and at offices. In a world that's still not found a solution to recognizing household work against a monetary figure, I advise every woman, every girl to aspire to go to a place of work so they can actually see money coming into their account. And I also really think that uh, don't buy into somebody's comment that you're too emotional. We tend to do that, and then we internalize the idea that we're emotional. I would encourage women to turn those emotions into some form of rage that actually has some positive impact on their lives and careers. We just don't let it like come to you as say, oh, you know what? And what you said about it, none of us, we have one life, right? I mean, we're not here to figure out whether you look great through the eyes of that guy or that woman. I don't care a damn about somebody else's eyes.
Yeah.
Do I look great in my own eyes? That's my benchmark, lady. And that's what we need to do.
I love
Yeah.
that. Quote.
Yeah.
Quote her on that. So, Shaili, you have 4 books. So we were kind of stalking you, and we saw that you have Feminist Rani, The Big Connect, Politics in the Age of Social Media, When I Was 25, The Leaders Look Back, and Birdies in Business.
Yes,
So,
but now my new book is out, and I'm just
what's your
thinking,
new
can I
book?
bring it here? Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
My new book is called Sisterhood Economy.
Nice. Okay.
Okay.
So
So
that's
tell
the number
us
5?
number 5.
Yeah.
Number 5?
Five.
Oh, good, good.
So from
Okay.
those 5 books, like which one was the one that you mostly enjoyed, basically?
So deeply honestly, my latest book is the one I enjoy the most because it comes from a sense of where I've been and where other 5,000 other women have been. I spoke to 5,000 women before I wrote this book.
Okay.
And this book literally was written 3 years before, and then COVID happened in the middle. And I kept thinking about completing this book, and I kept telling myself, you know what? I can't be coming out with a book in the middle of COVID. And then COVID changed so much for women. And I was like, there is no way this book can come out after COVID until I've written it again. So I literally started April last year, and I scrapped all my existing manuscript and I wrote for 3 months nonstop, and I came up with this book. And it has so many interesting stories about how the world around functions. One of the chapters is called the Indian Marriage Fish Market. Okay. Which is basically, so the Indian marriage market is a legitimate industry, right?
Okay.
The world spends, I don't know how many millions, billions of dollars buying jewelry and clothes for the Indian wedding dance drama. But most importantly, it's how they marry their daughters. There are a large number of women who spoke to me for this book who are doing their double PhD so that they can push marriage.
Okay.
They're studying more, not because they want to study or they're studious. They just want
because
to
they don't
not
want to
have,
get married.
they
Yeah.
want to get married. Okay. So, and they wouldn't be able to join a workplace because their parents would have an issue about that. Then I've talked about the bechari. Bechari means like somebody who's the oh poor girl equivalent in Hindi. Bechari, badass or bitch. The way we label women in this world, right? She could only be 3 things. She's like, oh, the poor girl, or like, what a bitch, or she'll be badass, right? I mean, there is no concept of a woman who's not labeled. Have you ever heard of one?
Yeah.
And then I talk about how technology is changing things. I've talked about the equality in bed sheets. I mean, women's right to pleasure is just not even a right. So it's really amazing when I sat down to do the book, how I realized that as an economics student, writing a book on the economy, it was so important to talk about what is not economic in nature, because these are things that have economic implications. If I have agency over my own body, I know when to say no to somebody or when to say yes. If
Mhm.
I know that I am not, if I have a sisterhood, I'm going to be feel, I'm going to feel power of a different nature than I would, let's
Mhm.
say, in the cabin of a CEO. If you ask me, most female CEOs sitting in cabins, running very large companies, feel really lonely at the top
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
they are trying to build change that's not backed up by the sisterhood, and people are just watching, waiting for them to falter so that they can just then make a big shindig out of it. So I think for me this has been really the most moving book, because I talk about women who are divorced. Like I am divorced, and I have two children, and I had two marriages, and it's not easy and it's tough. So I say this very simply: India could do a lot better only if it treated its women better. How difficult can that be?
Mhm.
I think it's true for the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. Where can
Yeah.
we get that book?
It's on Kindle. Just write Sisterhood Economy and my name and you'll get it. It's like a one day read. That's what I like about my own books, which I also love. See, I'm so unabashed about what I like. But yeah, I mean, it's just nice to be able to read your own book and say, hey, not bad, huh?
Yeah, that's another good topic where we need to be proud of what we do. And whatever it is
Yeah.
that we're doing, like just love it and say, hey, I was good at this. I'm good at this. I really like what it did. It's good to be proud of yourself.
You say it and you believe it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yanni, do
Yeah.
you have any other questions?
No, well, we have almost on the end of our conversation, but I would like to ask you just if you want to say something else. Well, I was thinking because you say that you were talking with a lot of women when you were writing this book, and I was wondering if you have something in common in all these women. I mean, some behavior or some idea or some kind of pattern that they follow. Something in common that you think is important to focus in this conversation.
So, I think we've covered a lot of things. I'd just like to say something that's, we women make a very big deal out of, how we are so righteous in our thinking most of the time that we don't take a risk, right? I have come to, I am 42, and I have come to realize that the person I was at 14, I don't even recognize that person, right? What I was at 25, I don't recognize that person. We're like any other animal kingdom, right? We're changing. We're changing every
Mhm.
15 years. I have stopped judging people of infidelity. I have stopped talking about how many marriages people have to have. I'm like, one life, man, let them marry as many times they want to, how many kids they want to have, right? I just feel like, oh, this woman now, she's an overachiever. Oh my God, she's doing this, she's doing that. I just think that we are just so busy figuring out what everybody else is doing with their lives. I
Mm.
think we live our life. I met somebody who said something to me when I talked about my personal journey as a person who was divorced at 21 within a few months of a marriage. And this woman said something that stuck with me. She said she was married twice and was already in love with a third guy, and she was 55. Okay. And she said that my family is cursing me because one, I've married twice, and now I've fallen in love again for the third time because the second marriage didn't work. And she did say it. She said, sometimes you just marry the wrong people, right? I mean, you may land up with idiots time to time. And she said, what's my fault? I can't fall in love with a guy again. So she's like, if I now go and decide to get married, this entire society is going to make me like this poster girl of somebody who should not be respected because she decided to, marry thrice. And I am telling you this while reading an article about a man who finds love at 91 and is going to marry the fourth time. So now when I read this story and everybody's going gaga over it, saying, oh, how sweet, just replace this man with a woman. And that, trust me, that is just
Yeah.
like, oh, really? So one thing that I've really changed about myself over the years: no judgment. And that's one thing I'm wanting to share. I mean, I gave this anecdote because this seems to be, personal lives and what you do with your love life and marriage are like the biggest spaces of judgment. There are thousands other places. You know, we as women need to stop judging ourselves and stop judging anyone else. That
Yeah.
is a good place to be.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Because you
Love it.
spend a lot of energy looking for the life of the other people. Take care of yours, and that's all, and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, focus on doing what you love to do and just that. And if you can share that with somebody else, your family, your kids, whoever comes along, I mean, I think that's being blissful, like being able to do that.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
first, you need to understand what exactly is that you want to do and that you really like. And that's a very good path to take towards yourself. Like, stop all this noise from the world, from the people, from needing to have a partner, needing to be married, needing to, and just like look inside and see what you really want to do. And that, and probably the thing is that probably when you're like shining and doing all these things that you really love, you're just going to attract those people that are going to be very good, you know, by yourself. I'm not saying just partner, even friends, girlfriends. I mean, all the people, partners that are going to work with you. It's just going to be amazing.
And stop looking for partners. Just hang with the girls. They'll come around.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. We say in Mexico, chocolate.
Chocolate. Done.
You know,
Muchas
new or
gracias, right?
oh, yeah.
Thank you. Gracias a ti, Shelly.
So please, could you share with us your social media, the places that we can continue talking with you or look for some new information, whatever?
Yep, I've just dropped them in here.
Okay, we can find you like Shaili Chopra, and the project that you have is Shethepeople TV, and you are in Instagram. You have
all of these are Instagram, but there is also the websites. You can find me at gayatri.com, shethepeople.tv. So Gayatri, incidentally, is now, I mean, of course, we are not in Spanish, but we are offering therapy services to international clients as well. We have Dubai and Australia as clients as well. So yeah, we're, you know, it's like women's health is universal. I mean, we all have the same holes. We have the same leakages. We have the same problems, which is kind of getting our navigation around that. So yeah.
Yeah. So Yanni will drop in all the information.
And on the description.
Episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can find all the people that is listen this podcast. You can find all the social media links on the description.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Shelly, for sharing with us all your thoughts. I consider you a very powerful woman, and I am so happy I met you. And I consider you a sister.
Yeah.
This is the sisterhood at work.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is your house. You can come to chat with us and whatever you want. This is your home, as I say. So thank you so much, and thank you for everybody who was listening to the end. And we are finished our conversation, but we have a new one for the next week. Thank you so much. See you next.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bring it back to